Okay, so here we go. What's on your
Well,
side, your list?
I've been basically sandboxing One Pro. I got a couple thoughts on it.
Yep.
We should go through my stack. At the top of my stack is using O1 Pro to reason about reasoning, which we were talking about yesterday, which I've not started yet because I was just
I
playing with
thought
the thing.
that. What about the part of telling me why cursor is 50% of the reasoning tool you desire?
Yes, that really comes down to the um, what cursor allows you to do is to aim at targets, which is fine.
Scoping
Um,
in, like scoping particular folders and files. You mean?
right, but there's still
Yep.
quite a high cognitive load on choosing those. Um, but I mean, this is like a pony for Christmas.
Yeah. I don't. Yeah. It's. I don't care. It's like we just. I need to understand what the perfect thing is for you because
Or the perfect thing is to disregard information. So, for
what?
example,
Okay. What does that
uh,
mean?
uh, um, reasoning really comes down to what to ignore, not what to consider. Once you know what to consider, that's fine. But
What to ignore, not what to consider. So that hasn't been how I've been using it. I've been using it as definitions and stuffing all the definitions in. And you're telling me that, like, how would I benefit from ignoring some things?
well, let's take an example. So I'm adding transcripts in. There's a couple of commits there.
Yeah.
I don't know what's relevant. It doesn't know what it thinks I think is relevant. And so, actually, in terms of reasoning about reasoning, I think maybe, might be wrong, it's more important to actually know what to disregard from a large body of knowledge
Dude, you
than what
just
to.
just stated the thing again. That's not an example. That's not an
Okay.
example. You just made the statement.
Um, right. Okay. So, an example is, say, we've got a set of definitions
What
there.
what can
We've
we
got
use the
the
Dreamcatcher definitions as an example?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and you might need to give me a forbearance here because I'm still thinking about reasoning. But uh, we've got the definitions of the Dreamcatcher. Now we can add in as many definitions as we want. That's easy,
Yeah.
generating definitions, but it doesn't make it tight. The interesting thing is when you reduce the number of
Yeah.
definitions
But
or reduce the number of
okay, is that what you meant
words.
by what to leave out?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Well, that's
It's about editing.
so the distillation of the reasoning isn't
That's
that what isn't that all that reasoning is though? The dis
it's yeah,
That's all
yeah,
it
yeah.
is, right?
It seems to be. It seems to be. It's like with and again, this follows on from okay. So we've got a great model that knows the some human knowledge. We don't really need that. We need to have it talk about this. And so there's two. There appears to be two parts to it. And again, forgive me. This might take me a few days to actually figure out coherently, but there seems to be two things. The first one is guardrails, as in just ignore anything outside of this body of
Okay.
knowledge. And the second thing is I've stated this, and can I state that any more succinctly without losing information and result?
So like basically yeah, but how does Cursor fail to deliver that to you? Are you wanting
Because
those kinds of principles to be baked into a nap so that it's always
yeah,
doing
yeah,
that, right?
because
Otherwise, you
I'm
have to
doing
kind of ask the same question over and over, right?
Yeah, there's a
Yeah.
cognitive load
Okay.
at the moment, which with the new models shouldn't be on me to do.
Yeah, right.
It
And I
should
guess
be
you
on
would
an AI.
also be able to do some grinding on it, like repetitive
Right.
calls that just burn like 1,000 calls
Yeah.
repetitively, trying to do that same distillation thing from all these different angles, right?
Exactly. And I
Yeah.
don't care, if I have like a prompt that is like 6, 7 words and it takes an hour to do, I'm just going to go out for a walk if it comes back and um, has properly understood what to um, what to
All
consider
right.
and what
So
not to
that
consider.
sort of touches on something that I'm getting a sense we have to have. Like, we need crawlers, we need big crawlers. And what we should be able to do is set up crawlers to listen into all the YouTube channels that are talking about AI and be able to digest any transcript and then figure out what are the new concepts that are there and then reconcile it into our
Yeah, yeah,
existing body of
yeah,
knowledge, right?
yeah. No, that'd be a great application.
Yeah. But the purpose of that is um,
Wisdom of the masses.
things, well, yeah, but things are changing so fast that I keep asking you, what should we do? And one of the things we must do, it seems, is to have a platform that is able to be adapted rapidly. So it's actually not about delivering a finished anything. It's about having a thing that can be turned into
Yeah,
all these new things that turn up.
right.
That's
Because
really the
yeah,
goal.
if you've got an innovation engine, it's kind of ridiculous if that innovation engine is just wrought once in cast iron.
Yeah, yeah. So it's like an adaptive system where we can plug in all these different things. And so the overhead of being able to keep up with what's changing is kind of like, over the past few years we keep shifting what we're doing to keep pace with the industry,
Yeah,
and we kind of, I think we're doing okay, but we're not like, we're not jacked in. We're still receiving novelty from the
it's
old
passive,
ways.
isn't it? Yeah, it's passive,
It's
and
like
the
people
old
being like,
ways
have you
very
seen blah
much.
blah blah, or us going and digging. There's no like, we need the
Here's another
thing
here's
like,
another tool with another API.
yeah,
Um,
we need what Neo had, where he was just crawling all the internet, you know,
yeah, yeah, and that's
looking for
that's that.
Morpheus.
Yeah, and can I check my thinking on this? And this is a gnarly topic, but what I'm thinking um, around this is okay, so you've got evidence presented. What do you do with that evidence? Your crawler, say, let's crawl YouTube, which would be, you know, just bandwidth. Um, we know how to transcribe, we know how to summarize, and then we know how to get O1, especially this new model, to look at the main themes. So you now got themes. You go from those themes to actually, okay, so what are the practices necessary? And then we go back to our core and say, well, okay, what practices now? This is the point where we get to the renders, which I think is really important. It's like, okay, so something new has come up, and what does that impact, or how does that impact on Dreamcatcher? So well, it's probably poorly worded. In order to think about thinking, you need to have a subject to think about. If that makes sense. That subject we're thinking about is Dreamcatcher, but you need a framework in order to do that thinking. That framework, I think, it's just been given to us 2,500 years ago, um, in terms of in logic and fallacies. Um, Possibly I'm missing something. There might be something else, but between formal logic and fallacious thinking, the bots get it. You can apply anything to that.
Yeah, right. So we could have like a system of modules like the fallacy checker, the absurdium checker, and
Yeah.
the key seems to be able to assemble these structures where you can plug different things in and we can
Right.
experiment with it because we there isn't one way to do it, and every day that goes by we'll find new ways to do it. We'll also have personal preference on what we like in our reasoning toolbox, and
Yep.
new models will arrive. So the
Yeah.
only real move we can make is we need a framework or a platform that can plug in these different functionalities, be it crawling, reasoning, um,
Yeah. Yeah.
all those kinds of things, right? Because
And now it's sorry, go ahead.
it starts to it starts to the thing that I think we're missing is that the coming of AI is probably going to be, or it must surely be, something that is always running in the background on my behalf, and yet we have no such task that's going. You know what I mean?
Yes, that's a necessary prerequisite for this because
It needs to
um,
be grinding in the background. It needs to be
yeah,
doing stuff all the time. I don't know what exactly, but surely it's not AI unless it's like whirring
right,
away, right?
right,
And
exactly.
it should
So
be like ChatGPT has no features that are trigger features, like tell me when this event occurs.
ah,
Watch
I
this
think
site.
I
Like
think
they
I
don't have
text
triggers.
I think I text you on something like that. On what did I say? Sorry, can I just check? Because this is in my notebook. Second.
But what does it matter? Like you recall the concept, right? Like we only care
Right.
about
Okay.
getting the
Right.
concept out.
I'll tell you the concept. I'll tell you the concept. Which is basically what you just said. Is a background task. I think I called it long AI.
Long AI.
Um,
Okay, I don't
which
recall
is
you telling me that, but that sounds like the thing. That
yeah
absolutely sounds like the thing.
is just sit there and consider continually in a cyclic loop, which is well defined
Hmm.
because at the core. Consider all new information and tell me when you don't understand or whether there is a
Right. So I
contradiction or
guess
something.
the key to reasoning, or the finished version of reasoning, is something that can be fed in an arbitrary number of ingestions, like transcripts or crawler results or triggers that have gone off, and it can decide reliably whether or not its reasoning needs to be updated or modified in any way, right?
And add to that, at the moment, what we got is prompt response. So the AI does nothing unless you prompt it. Um, so why? Why not put a prompt in saying, over the next year, keep considering um, this
Yeah,
core.
yeah, yep. I think we,
And this, yeah,
yep.
yeah. Um, I've no idea how to do that. I don't know if it's even possible, but
Yeah,
it's definitely on the pony list.
it's not about how we do it. It's that like all these things we need to be building one thing, and that one thing needs to satisfy these almost unlimited use cases. Otherwise, we end up falling in the trap of we got
Being
caught
another
up
tool.
on nearly something that was
Yeah,
nearly the thing.
yeah, yeah.
And our job is to figure out what that is and then how to incrementally approach it. Now, what you just described there, I can see how Cursor doesn't do that, but I felt like when you were saying Cursor is only 50% of the reasoner you need, you weren't thinking about triggers or long AI. You were thinking about something else.
No, I was thinking about the cognitive load that required me to hunt
So all
and
you
peck
all you really wanted
for
was
the fox.
you wanted let me try to see if I can get this right. You wanted first of all some agents that were pre-programmed to do reasoning that you could
Mm.
point at your reasoning files, right?
Yep.
Rather and the what you have to do in cursor is you have to hand prompt it every time and say this and say that
Right.
and but
Right.
right
Right.
you
Yeah.
wanted and by implication you also want the ability to um, test out new theories of how to improve reasoning, so how to plug in different naps and plug in this and plug in that, right?
Well, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
By test out new theories, that is like modeling through renders so that is really obvious to the human brain. Yeah. Nah, that's not right.
So
Or
okay, and then
that is
there's
right.
the other aspect which you might have been applying, which is you want to be able to be working on the reasoning and then trigger these agents whenever something changes. So if you modify a file using one tool, you'd want a bunch of like reconciliation to kick off that would
Right.
see if those
Right.
changes still
Exactly.
fit all the
And
rules you set, right?
the word is probably getting further from what original use is, but still thinking about that as evals. It's like, what's my unintended consequence of
That's
this
not an
model?
eval. That's absolutely not an eval.
The eval is if I make this change, do I break anything?
That's not an eval. You
What's an
need to
eval from? We got we're out of sync then. What's your eval?
eval means the meaning that it meant when we were using it to inside of naps and to describe naps, where evals generate a large number of synthetic inputs for the nap and have a list of expectations that the output needs to achieve, and then a, the assessor checks whether the output of all the evals meets the expectations in what percentage of runs. That's an
Yes.
eval.
Um. And why? Why do that?
Why do we do that?
Yeah.
To ensure that the nap that we are producing has an assurance of correct behavior because of its prompting and its code and its other naps that are all put together. The evals ensure the quality of the produced unit.
Yes. So it's the expected outcome, which is being a negative Scotsman, flipped on the head, saying what we don't want is unintended outcomes. It's the same thing. It's
No,
like
it is not the
what do
same
you
thing. It is not the same
what do you
thing. It is
expect?
not the same thing. The eval is intended to be a build time tool, but what you're talking about is something that occurs during runtime because it's different every time. It's not a brute force check against the quality of the system. You're talking about the actual work that you're doing being
Oh,
tested
actually,
for correctness.
no, I might have misspoken. No, I'm talking about compilation time. So we're talking about taking the core and compiling it into JSON and so on. It's like, what if I change this core? Are all the outcomes that are required still correct? And I'm because I'm negative by nature, flipped it on the head, saying, what are the unintended consequences, which is possibly a larger set? And then tell me about the unintended consequences based
Yeah,
on
I think you need a new word for that because that's that's not how evals have been used for naps, and that would
Mhm.
create a word collision with something that's between two things that are very different.
Okay, and yeah, that's cool. That's cool. But they're related in that both evals and new word are there if you change anything in the core
Yeah.
and you've got your compilation. Have I broken anything?
Right. So there would be some checks on the reasoning output, is what you're saying.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And what you were saying before about running synthetic data, let's do some Monte Carlo. Let's have, some kind of trigger level we're happy with, all good. Um, uh, but the
Oh, is that what you want to run? Like you want to actually have a set of genuine evals running on the output of a bot that was, for example, prompted with all your reasoning definitions, and
yeah,
then you want
yeah,
to, right?
yeah,
And so you,
yeah,
okay, and so you want to change the definitions, rerun the evals, and figure out what changed. Is that what you mean?
yeah. And whether you've broken anything, exactly. And by broken anything, um, that is
Oh,
now we
okay. Sorry about that. Yeah. So that's definitely an eval.
okay, cool.
The other more lightweight runtime version of that is a bot that runs in the background and tries to reason about or use its smarts to figure out what the implications of what just changed were. It like reconciles what just changed with what
Oh,
else is
so
there.
you by change you're meaning the runtime data as
So
opposed
while
to the
you're there
schema.
and you're like talking about something, or you make a change to what the definitions, the text files of the definitions are, and then you would want an agent that ran and tried to work out what the implications of that are on the rest of the definition files.
Oh, that's an interesting thing because the way I've been thinking about the evals
Oh,
is
that
to
wasn't
change.
what you're thinking about?
No. This is interesting. You've just said something quite interesting. The way I'm thinking about evals, well, the core changes very infrequently and is compiled into the JSON, which allows all the stuff we were talking about last time. The evals allow you to see the unintended or gives you
The evals act as a form of rendering that it
right.
amplifies any errors that might have occurred in the definitions that you have, right?
Exactly, but the definitions change infrequently, so it doesn't need to
Well,
be at runtime.
well, I don't think it
Um,
matters if it's infrequently or not. I mean, the definitions are going to change, and when they do change, you're going to need to apply some pretty standard um, agent
sure,
behavior to it.
sure, but I think, what you're touching on there, which is quite an interesting idea, is if I put in a prompt that implies a change to a definition, run something at runtime. You shouldn't need to do that because the core should change infrequently. It's like the core is compiled
No, mate,
down.
I've lost you. Who cares if it changes infrequently or not? It does change, and so you need to be able to deal with that. And I'm trying
All
to
right.
figure out what kind of tooling you're asking for that Cursor doesn't do, so that I can rearrange my priorities as to what I try to deliver, and can I figure out how to make this kind of use case fit within the existing UI that we have, or do we
Okay.
need some
Okay.
widgets? That's what I'm trying to figure out.
That's a very fair question. So what I'm asking for isn't a runtime evaluation. I'm asking for at the change of the core that is compiled down to the schema, um, and then that schema
Yeah,
is
so okay, so
rectified.
not all reasoning has a schema, but you're saying that in the type of reasoning that would produce a schema that would then be used to populate JSON records,
Yeah,
okay, which is not every, this is unique to that, like the CRM
yeah,
has that, for example.
yeah.
Um,
It's a lot of things, but not everything. You're right. Yeah.
so when that occurs, you want to do what? Sorry, you want to
Make
put.
sure I, make sure I haven't broken anything.
So
Anything that
you would
is
have configured a bunch of evals that would test the behavior of the system once
against
the JSON
F3
schema has been created, and it would have some test data that it could populate, and it goes around
Yep.
evaluating the correctness of the system. And so anytime you want to do a version release of your reasoning, you would need to
Yep.
run these evals again and make sure they still pass sufficiently before the release is allowed. Is that?
Exactly. A little bit like NL continuous integration. A little bit like
Yeah,
that.
so that's not. Yeah, so Cursor's clearly never going to have that. And that is the test framework that we spoke about. That's
Yeah.
all you're asking for there, right? The
Pretty
test
much,
runner.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the one other previous thing, which is a reasoner or reasoning that, given the context of my prompt, I don't need to go and, say, only consider this folder or this file, because it knows.
Is it but
possibly
does
could
it
be
does it
anything.
know because it is the agent that specializes in that particular reasoning domain?
I think it probably would be, yeah.
It would be, right. Okay, so
Probably.
how I think reasoning looks like in general use is that each reasoning domain is a NAP. That NAP has an agent within it, or a front end agent that may or may not contain other
Yeah, that
agents
makes
inside
sense.
it.
That makes sense. Yep.
It has evals against it, like all NAPs should.
Yep.
Those are the evals that you're talking about to check that the product of the reasoning works.
Yep.
I worry that your concept of JSON schema being in there has gone beyond pure reasoning, and now you're talking about something else like actual implementation.
Yeah, but
it does affect the
just to
reasoning, right?
just to double down on that one, I'm incorporating your request from the last conversation about a compilation step into a schema.
Yeah.
Um,
I guess
the reasoning doesn't need that, but the implementation probably does.
so. The compilation is a render of the reasoning, right? And the render is used to find, by whatever means you can, errors in the reasoning or refinements in the reasoning. And so running evals against the schema that was rendered is another form of amplifying the reasoning so that you can.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Because what I'm starting to see is that it's like the reason, like what I was doing today was this. I was following what we agreed yesterday, and I started reasoning through the UI, and this was one of the outputs that I got to.
Was that the one that you showed me yesterday?
No, it's a new one. This is what I spent a couple of hours on today. Was like
check this. Hello, hi, chat button. Okay, so okay, take me through this. This is quite interesting.
wait a second. I lost my point. Hang on.
Yep.
The issue that I had was like there's one other thing I want to show you before I can make my point.
Engaging shutting up mode.
Yeah, I was speaking to O1 about how we can handle this communication thing, and it's almost like we need like a declaration that a concept is being transmitted, and then either one of us goes into the mode of purely asking questions to make sure we got the transmission before going on and building on the concept.
I agree, and interesting enough, these conversations, I think what you're saying there is let's make it more formal. It's almost like I'm handing over the conch, because when I'm taking in the transcripts are
it's like
up.
We need to figure out a way to talk that is transcript and reasoning. We need a way to conduct a meeting in the age of AI where our conversation serves as novelty for reasoners to extract innovation out of whatever we're saying, right? And if we don't have a good, clean way of talking, then we won't get good quality results. additionally, we may need a tool that runs live that sort of helps us or tells us when we're doing badly, when the machine is confused, and we can correct it as we go, rather than the current mode, which is do all the talking, stop, then process it. We need a real-time system.
I agree, and this would also help the transcripts being ingested as something coherent. Now, a starter for 10 is something you proposed, which is a real-time reasoner listening to what we're doing and almost a virtual conch. It's like, shut up, Maxo. Let Tom talk.
Or shut up, Tom, whatever, right? And then but it also should have the ability to try and interpret what the person who's delivering the message is saying, and try and interpret it in different ways so that it can say where the deliverer is being ambiguous. And it's like, well, did you mean this or that or that? Because somebody somewhere is only gonna perceive one of those reasonable options, which means that they might get the wrong one. And so if you can clarify what these easy mistakes, what you actually mean to close out these easy alternatives, you will get a higher quality transmission.
Exactly, and maybe that's something that is sharpening the saw. For example, we spent roughly 4 minutes talking about evals and came to the same conclusion.
Right.
That's 4 minutes lost.
I know, that's what I'm getting at. We are losing time here, and there is a way for reasoning to be done far more effectively. It is already a highly effective method. So, like, even the lossy version is still better than whatever else we want to do, but being good at it would be great. So, anyway, let's park that one, because what I wanted to show you was my foray into using reasoning for code. So here I took one of the modules in the naps folder.
Yeah.
This module is the getkv. It's the thing that basically stores the files, because where I'm trying to get to, again, to appease your constant demands for progress, is to make Artifact be just the Git module alone for now, so that we can use it as context in chats without having the execution element or property within Artifact, so that we can sort of push and pull out a Git, we can have branches, we can have all that. It doesn't actually need the execution part. It doesn't need naps. Anyway, the point is that I used O1 Pro to reason through, well, reason-ish, I mean, reason through what the specification for this module is, and
apologies, which repo are we looking at here?
The naps repo.
Right. Thank you.
And then I asked O1 Pro to then go ahead and generate the code based on the spec and based on the existing code that I already had that had a bunch of errors that didn't compile. And I was like, sort it out, please. The response came back. It looked pretty good. But my question to you, I've now ended up with reasoning inside this module folder. And then over here in the reasoning repo, I have reasoning that is in the reasoning folder. And the problem is, like, where does the reasoning go? Because the implementation is actually a render of the reasoning that needs to be used to feed back into the reasoning to improve it. And
it's been a nagging thing at the back of my head. So, for example, this morning I took our last YouTube transcript and the one that you did with our friend in Canada, and put it in. It's like, where do I put it in? And I've just got a dump. It's like, it doesn't feel very nice because the dump
Yeah.
is right next to the
All right.
core.
So what's the options for a solution?
Well, I guess I don't know.
Okay, I
One
don't know.
guess for starter
Yep,
would
starter.
be a folder structure which we can just say ignore this set of. If you go to the reasoning repo, I put it under raw. I think it is.
Yeah,
And it's like,
yeah, I got some stuff to say about that. But
yeah,
I think that it goes in I think it goes in a folder called reasoning inside of the module. So that's where I put it here.
oh, what do you mean by module?
Well, the NAP, sorry, the NAP.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Okay.
inside the NAP, there would be a folder that I make that's called reasoning. And then inside the reasoning folder, I put the reasoning about that module,
Okay.
right?
Yes, broadly. We still need somewhere to put in where the reasoning came from, because the
Well,
reasoning is a result.
the reasoning that you were doing, for example, in the reasoning repo, inside the domains folder, each one of these should be an individual NAP, aka a module, so that when I'm in another module, an arbitrary module, doing the reasoning, I can import the NAPs from that are just pure reasoning. I can import those NAPs in and use them to base my reasoning on here. And I guess I would want to do the whole exclude include or some kind of translation or processing so that I could indicate the lineage.
Pause. Yes. The one thing I'd add to that is because text is effectively free. Never want to lose any conversations like this, but it shouldn't be considered other than okay, so this is our render of the reasoning, this is what it does. Why did we say that? And it's like, well, okay, well, on this date we were talking about this date this happened.
I'm not
So
sure that query is that valid. I never ask that personally, and I've never heard you ask it.
I do it in the background infrequently, but it's
Infrequently, yeah, infrequently.
but it is useful. It is definitely a thing.
Why is
It's
it
not
useful?
because being meat brains, we change. Well, for example, we change the how we are talking about a thing from a module versus an app, which
Okay,
is what we
but
did.
why does that matter? So
Um,
in this
the
in that
thing
case,
is,
I am confused because a NAP and a module are the same.
no,
All NAPs are modules.
yeah,
But
but we don't have a definition of a module.
well, no, we don't need it because it's defined in JavaScript. And the issue I have is that sometimes I want to talk about a module as the actual JavaScript module,
Mhm.
and other times I want to talk about it as a NAP, which is the JavaScript module plus the nap.json file
Ah,
within it, depending on which
so
part of it is important, right? It's either a module or a NAP, depending on what it's being used for.
yeah, exactly. So here's my reasoning around why it's important. Okay, so a definition of a module you just given in JavaScript, which we can refer out to.
Yeah.
A NAP you just said is JSON, which inherits but it's also got natural language. So it's definitely not the same thing. What, in terms of reasoning about reasoning, I'm saying is at what point in the past, and this is why it's infrequent, at what point in the past did we decide naps were a good thing, and we've discovered a
Yeah, but
whole bunch of other things,
what does that even matter to know when we did that?
because we've discovered a whole bunch of new things since then.
Yeah.
And is that is the nap still a good thing, or should we change to something else? I'm getting really in the weeds here, but the point is, I think I would prefer, and if you can just roll with this one, um, have in your folder around an app, uh, inside of reasoning, a folder called raw, and raw
Yeah,
is
Raw's a bad name. I'd been using ingestions as the name
I
because
mean,
raw could be bloody anything. It could be just a
yeah.
so.
By
But in
raw, I was
yeah, I know what
what I
you
was
mean.
meaning.
I know
Yeah,
I know what you mean.
yeah.
Ingestions is a better name than raw because it represents information that we want to ingest into the reasoning.
Yes, but it kind of renders itself into the reasoning.
Renders itself
So,
into the reasoning.
for example, this conversation I would count is an ingestion.
Yeah. Okay.
It may result in new definitions on a nap
Yes.
for Dreamcatcher.
Yep. Okay.
Um, we
So
render that, and that is relatively stable. Um, 6 months from now, you
why
come
do you
back
keep
and say,
talking about the stability of it? Like, why does that matter?
because we should, I think, responsibly be thinking about, unless we want to do a random walk around all possible ways of doing this, we should have some kind of consistency. And so it's like, well, why were you and
Yeah,
I,
but
for
no, but
example,
you
in
keep bringing up,
acquaintance?
we talk about the reasoning, and then you're like, it should be long term stable. I'm like, why do you keep saying that? Like, it's not long term stable while it's all being built. Why does it? Of course, everyone wants their knowledge
Well,
base to be
let me put it
stable.
this other way, and I'll just ask this as a favor. Um, Create a folder called raw and dump everything that has to do with that nap in there. I've got a hunch that actually that'd be quite useful
What?
because
Sorry,
when
what is going on here? What is going on? I'm trying to figure out from you. I'm
yeah,
saying this is my experience with reasoning, getting it to write code, to write JavaScript modules inside of a nap, and I'm
yep,
saying that raw is a terrible name for a folder
or
anywhere.
ingestion, sorry, ingestion, that's fine.
Ingestion is good to put um, transcripts and other kinds of information that we want to extract the
Right,
novelty out of
okay.
to reconcile against the reasoning. And then you keep saying, I'm like, why do you keep going on? And why does it even matter to bring up the long term stable bit? Like, why does that keep coming up?
Well, why would you not want to be stable?
Yeah, but you can say that about this entire code base. Everyone wants all of their information systems to be stable.
Yeah.
So, but you
So
keep
what?
adding that in there.
Yes, but stability is impacted by new information. But
Yeah,
new information, you don't know the implication of it necessarily at the time.
yeah.
And
But
so what
our
mass?
systems of reasoning need to encourage new information because the change from static, the change that's caused by ingesting novel information is where the value comes from. So it's not that we need to be
Mm.
long term stable.
Oh,
Long term stable is a fault, it's death. Long
I
term
think
stable
no,
is a tombstone.
no. I think I see. We were talking at cross purposes slightly here. What I'm saying is having a place, a folder that is not considered often, but is available. That is the history that allows you to learn
All right,
from the history.
we're already agreeing that there's going to be an ingestion folder, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
So that doesn't that
I think
end everything that you're just about to say?
yes, it does actually. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we can move on.
Give me a folder, man. I want a folder. Give me a folder.
Okay, so inside, so what I'll do is inside the
Never delete
modules.
anything. Yeah.
That's a bad tactic.
What
We
for
need to,
text?
yeah,
No.
it's a bad tactic because we have Git that stores it in the history, but the
No.
current tip folder should be kept very clean. Now,
I see what you're saying.
you have a problem. You have a problem with deleting, and it chokes you, and you can't move on because of it. And your
That's
inability to
crap.
delete forbids you from having a clean system of useful information.
You're talking
And
about the flame front. I'm talking about to quote a previous PM. Those who forget history are doomed to repeat it. You need to know. You need to be able to drill down.
I'm not sure that these arguments are getting us anywhere, buddy. I'm really
Yeah,
not.
no worries. But let's move on.
Okay.
Because I've got my folder, so I'm happy with that. It is a dump, and it's not considered.
Mate, we're trying to move on, and you're busy trying to keep on defining the thing.
I'm just saying.
You're saying again and again and again.
I'm summarizing.
Again, like we ended it.
Okay. Summarizing. I'm sorry, man.
So inside the modules, we're gonna put the reasoning in there.
Yeah.
And then there's gonna be reasoning modules at the higher level that the only reason, like in the reasoning domains folder, the only reason that the reasoning goes there is because we don't have a nap to put it in just yet, right?
Yeah.
The unimplemented.
Yeah. But to rewind 10 minutes before I started banging on about Winston Churchill, how did you find moving the artifacts into a kind of core reasoning thing? Was there, because that's what
Sorry?
we're talking about.
You're asking how did I find producing code by doing the reasoning first?
As in.
Look, it was hard to take the time to get started, but once I got started, I was like, oh, this is nicer, and it's irritating that GPT Pro doesn't have an API because I immediately want some tooling to do cut and pasting for me effectively.
I'm sorry, I'm just gonna ignore that.
Yeah, but it does. And the other tool that I wanted personally was to be able to go, I'll take this file, this file, this file, and then have it inserted in the chat that I'm about to have. And so, basically context selection and file output, particularly multi-file, because that's sort of what Cursor's pretty good at.
Sorry, go on.
Yeah.
And I've got some.
No, that was it. Yeah.
Can I press on that just for information? So, by going this file, and this file in the context of artifact only, you are, and press back on me on this one if necessary. You're bringing your human experience to it and saying, "This is what I'm talking about. Ignore everything else." And this is what I'm saying, and then rendering that into does the reasoning stand up, or have I missed anything?
Yeah, kind of, but it might be, it could be any reason that I want to highlight those files. Like I could be about to ask a question, right? It's really just
it's
like
not all right to reasoning to core,
yeah. And so I kind of want to, like, I kind of, what I would expect the tool to do is that inside of reasoning, it's like all the reasoning is always relevant every time I'm making any kind of change. But sometimes I want to pick some of the change or some of the renders because this code is now rendered from the reasoning, and then I want to chat about issues in these renders that should affect the reasoning, right?
Yes,
That's
because
the
it's
key
too
loop.
late.
That's the key
Yeah,
loop that
yeah,
we're trying to get going, right?
yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Precisely.
Because the reasoning should be being applied in full every time the bot makes a change here. And I think that a good rule of thumb that I'm picking up on is that if your reasoning is so large that it doesn't fit in the context window of 128K, then you've messed up and you need to split, you need to modularize or break it apart somehow,
Yeah.
because 128K should be enough for everybody. But it's more the point that if you can't fit it in your head conceptually, if it
Oh,
goes bigger, if it goes bigger
interesting.
than the AI's context window, it probably also doesn't fit in your head either. And that's an
Ah,
indication that there's a fault, because a human can't help you if the human can't hold it in context too. And so you've lost the parity between the source of novelty and the mechanical implementation of that novelty. And
sir,
those,
that is an excellent, excellent point and magnificently made. So when I've been talking about reasoning previously, it's like let's dump everything in. You know, there's no limit to the core, and we're just trusting the core. But you're saying actually, if at the artifact level, for example,
yeah,
which is a good paradigm for any kind of reasoning about anything someone skills doing, there's only so much that you want to consider.
yeah, that's right. And a critical part of reasoning is defining the end. Like, what is the end of this domain? Is
Your
possibly
intent.
more important than what's inside it. Like, saying what's out of range is the most important thing. Where does this end?
Right.
That seems to be the most important
That's
thing.
yeah, that's the red flag because that's where human brains cannot possibly ever be overtaken by AIs as we got it. Um, and we're talking about I don't know. Remember when I was banging on about intent? That was a long time ago now. But specifying your intent. What should this thing do?
I don't see the relation to our current topic here.
The reasoning being, if you have the tent, you have a head mark. The AI, if the intent is well formed, can constantly say, "Well, okay, so you're trying to do this."
Based on what I recall from you talking about intent, I don't think that overlaps with reasoning. Reasoning
Okay,
and intent, we settled the intent debate by saying that intent is a special type of a thing in that it can never be said. It's always inferred. It's always sort of we know
okay.
that it's there.
Let me respectfully disagree and be
Well,
challenged.
yeah, but why? What are you trying to drive at here? Like, it
What I'm
sounds like
trying to
you're just
drive at.
trying to compare. You're trying to tell me about something that you said a while ago,
No,
and I'm like,
no, no,
why?
no, no, no,
What
no.
for?
I'm bringing it up for a specific reason.
Okay, what's the reason?
You're saying I'm working on this artifact, and okay, so you're talking about the reasoning. You're talking about the code as it is. You're looking at changes. You're looking at the the
I'm
intended
I'm
and
running I'm
unintended
I'm running out of stack. I'm running out of stack.
all right.
You're rattling off like 10. You just
Yeah.
named 10 different things, and all I'm asking you for is, why are you bringing up intent in relation to reasoning? And I don't think you need 10 different examples there to help me understand that.
Right. Okay. So reasoning without intent makes no sense. what you're reasoning towards. What is when you're trying to change an artifact, what you're trying to do. Unless you tell the bot,
Okay,
it
yeah,
doesn't
no,
know.
that's a good question, but I haven't hit that. Like it doesn't seem to care. Like I'm like
Okay.
because the intent doesn't need to be captured, and the intent should never be captured because intent is what I am doing.
Um.
It's not intent is not what I said I was doing because that's always wrong. What
Yeah.
I am doing is I come to this file and I say I want to modify the bubble changes. Uh,
Oh, right.
you know,
You. Okay. So you're.
the
Right. Okay.
intent is me in
We're talking
motion.
about.
The intent is what I'm doing, and the reasoning is the constraints on the system and the background context that increases greatly the chance that the bot will get my intent right.
Okay. I think I'm wavering towards your argument there. I'll give it one more uh, squirrely one. Um, if we were to think about intent as writing the man page
Oh
first.
mate, listen, I can't handle any more intent debates. Like
Yeah. Okay.
I've
All
had
right.
enough of
Okay.
them. I
Yeah.
thought we
Yeah.
settled them. I thought we settled them.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. I'll come back to this at the right moment, but I'm mostly interested about your experience.
Right. So that's what I was trying to explain. Right, is
Yeah.
that it it is. I guess it felt rusty and clunky to get going because I've never done this before. But the results I felt were pretty clean. Like it provided I can stomach the copy pasting that I have to do,
Yeah.
it feels like it's I wouldn't say faster, but it feels significantly cleaner and clearer to do. And I think that the speed increase and the quality increase doesn't come from the first pass. I feel like the quality increase will come from pass number two, like when I need to change the module that I've made. That's when, like
Oh, brilliant, brilliant.
writing a module from scratch is kind
Mm.
of, it's hard to get it wrong because you're like, ta-da, and even using O1 without reasoning and just sort of loosely saying, I want this code, out it comes. But
Yeah.
where it starts to really bite is when you've got faults, you've got issues, or you want to make an extension to the feature set, or you need to reconcile it with other modules. That's when it
Yes.
starts to be like, ow, my head. But if the reasoning was good, then the edits from the bot should follow the reasoning. And so if you have two modules together and you want to reconcile the reasoning between them, that seems like reasoning done right because you're getting the reasoning first and then you're rendering out the code. But when you render out the code, you do it in isolation. So each
Hmm.
layer only considers the layer above it. So when I'm
Hmm.
rendering code, I only look up to the reasoning in this module. When I'm reasoning, when I'm making multiple modules assemble together, because I've got some top level reasoning that says what this whole thing does when it's assembled, that reasoning only needs to deal with this reasoning and not this code. And so by forcing it to be at these layers, I can modularize scope what I'm thinking about at the appropriate level, and that I think is the key.
That chimes with um, what I've found on the NL side, and you are the subject matter expert on code. Um, uh, and what it sounds like you're saying is using reasoning allows allows you to think at the layer of the human as opposed to simply hitting your fingers on a keyboard. Um, would you choose to do it this way? Uh,
Like, given
or
that, so with my 1 day's experience of doing it this way
yeah,
versus my
we're
fucking quarter century of
we're both
suffering in the other way, you're
we're
saying to
both at
me
one day's experience.
1 day's experience,
Yeah.
I would unanimously, I don't know if that applies since it's only me, I would unanimously take this way,
Hmm.
100%. And I would take it for, what would you take?
Well, I'm nowhere close to being as good as you at code. My code is horrible and nasty and shonky, and I usually just
But I bet it would come out pretty good using this,
it it probably could actually.
right?
Yeah.
And then, like, maybe even more importantly, if I made these modules using reasoning, you could come and make a change.
I could certainly propose a change based on the reasoning of,
That's
you know,
probably quite profound, actually, because it's like you'd hit a stuck. You're like, I want this thing, and then you'd navigated the layers to arrive at this module needs to do something different,
yeah,
right? And you've sort of reconciled down all the reasoning, and the
yeah,
reasoning still holds, and now you're in implementation. You're about to render some code. The chances that the code will render correctly are very, very high if the reasoning has been done right.
yeah.
And the reason why
I
I
think so.
chose
I
this
think so.
method is because given that O1 Pro is a 2025 model, the 2026 model, like if you and I take a minute to think that exactly 1 year ago,
Mm-hmm.
we were sitting there freezing our bollocks off with GPT-4, the
Yeah.
first version, right? And now we're
Yeah,
sitting here
I'm
with,
trying to do agentic and prompt hacking
yeah,
and all
yeah,
that kind of
write
thing.
blog posts and all that. And now we're sitting here with O1 Pro, and I'm like, O1 Pro is so much more. So what's like 2026's model? But this principle seems permanent. Like this principle, no matter how good the model gets, this principle or something like it is a superior way to do things. That's kind of why
I
I'm like
I
trying to make a
agree.
big deal about it.
I no, I agree. I agree. Um, it really comes down to those three C's. An AI LLM given an unambiguous coherence will be able to just say, given your, what do you want to change? It will be able to tell you what to do, what happens if you do it, and happens if you do it and you apply it to a running data set. And it would do it in a year from now, probably, doing a single prompt. It will just say, dude, you don't want to do that. You're gonna break your nuclear power station.
The issue I have with that
Mm-hmm.
is that you say single prompt, but no matter how advanced an intelligence gets, the world is made up of, or action is made up of steps, and increasingly complex problems have more steps. And so each step can only be so much, right? Like, no matter how good an AI gets, it's never just going to go one step to the end, right? It's just going to do a bunch of steps really fast. There's no such thing as one big step.
I agree, and I'm trying to deploy my new skill of discipline silence and not talk over. Um, I agree. The interesting part is with NL, you can get actually quite complex systems And if you've got reasoning and the reasoning steps, you can compile down to what you were saying about 12 minutes ago. How much can a human hold in his head?
Yeah.
So yes, I retract my gross oversimplification earlier on, but I agree with what you just said.
Okay. I think there's another element too that's important. No matter how good the models get, buddy, like you and I still need to see inside them. And this reasoning model seems like a good compromise where, like, my understanding or how my mental capacity goes until Elon Musk makes Neuralink or something like that, it's kind of fixed. Like,
I think
I'm
so.
stuck. I'm stuck here. This is all I can really do. And
Drill down on that one. That's
all right, I've
there's a
been,
sniff of a really interesting idea there.
I've had the same cognitive ability for around about 15 years now from memory. It hasn't gotten better. I've just gotten more memory and more experience, and I can take shortcuts. But the cognitive ability is about the same. No matter how good the AI gets, I still need a way to converse with it if my will is to matter on this earth when AI's power increases significantly. And I do believe that my will and everyone else's will continue to matter. And so we need a way to meet the AI on a common ground. And reasoning is something that anybody, anytime is going to understand. Doesn't matter who you are, right? Like, if someone tries to show me some COBOL, I'm like, mate, I don't know what the hell that is, right? But if they show me 20 years from now, if someone shows me some reasoning, I'm going to be like, that's kind of right. When I read white papers from the dawn of the internet, RFCs, their reasoning, I'm like, I get that. That makes sense.
Yeah, I
But the code they wrote it in, man, I have no idea.
totally agree. But the cognitive load is the thing to think about where to shift it. So someone writes some Cobalt code from 1975,
Right.
And haven't written down any of the reasoning.
Right.
The cognitive load is on you to try and understand it, and
Right.
then after 2 or 3 days, you go, "Fuck, that's a really good idea. That's brilliant."
Right.
And
But
I
if
can
they had
combine
have
it
written
with
down
that.
the reasoning first, then you could
Yeah,
have had the good idea without the
yeah.
reverse engineering, right?
Now, if you tag that code with the reasoning, then you've got a unit that can kind of progress.
Right. And I guess a side effect is that if you do the reasoning right, the NAP comes with a bot that knows about its own code. And you're like, hey, why is this function bubble changes? Why is it like that? It's got
Yeah,
the reasoning it knows. It can read it and explain it to you in a way that Cursor right now has to guess. Because,
um,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Go on, go on,
No,
go on.
that was it. I was just gonna
Yeah, I mean,
repeat myself, I guess.
while we're asking for ponies for Christmas, 2 years from now, it
Well,
will
it's all
be.
ponies. The ponies are
Yeah,
here, man. Like,
yeah.
O1 Pro is definitely a pony. Like,
It's definitely a pony. It's definitely,
it was not a cheap pony, I might add, but it was a pony. And I think
but
that's the number one objection to people getting ponies when they ask for them is like, dude, that's going to cost a bomb. But
yeah, but it doesn't really.
I
It's
think it's
ludicrously
cheap.
cheap.
I,
It's
I,
ludicrously cheap.
I think it's cheap, and I'm just waiting for them to tell me that they've miscalculated how much people were going to use it.
Let's not. No, yeah,
Because
why would they think that they can make a margin on it? Yeah, leave that up to them.
right,
That's
like I
fine.
hit that thing all day. I had
Yeah,
I had like two, maybe three calculations running constantly. Right, like it was a busy day.
I've been hitting this thing hard,
Hard, right? Like just
and
from our API usage, I would like. There's been days when you've clocked like $10 worth of O1 usage easy.
yeah, and so I mean, we basically work what? Well, actually, we work about 30 days a month. So, on my side, it's $600. Your side, you know, Debate doing the same. We're we're,
Yeah,
we're getting we're
yeah,
getting high. We're getting high, and they're saying $200.
yeah,
It's like, fuck yeah, I'm gonna go for that. But the point I was saying is it's not being captured, but could actually be captured. Sorry, separate point. It's not
mm,
been captured up to this point. A piece of code. The piece of code is the render. It's
yeah,
not captured any of the reasoning. Now, if
yeah.
we link reasoning and some new technology that is superior to JSON comes through, I don't know, like quantum computing, blah blah blah, what
Blah blah blah. Yeah,
woo
yeah.
woo
Anything. Yeah,
comes through. If the reasoning's there,
yeah.
it still works.
Or even a new language, like a coding language.
Yeah, yeah. It
Um,
it doesn't matter what it is, how it's
a new
rendered.
algorithm, like if an AI discovers, or a person, sorry, I
Yeah,
shouldn't be so rude, a person discovers a new formula for something, then if the reasoning is correct, it can be applied quicker, right?
yeah. So yesterday, again back to my question yesterday. I was listening to the recording, and I apologize. I was feeling a bit rough. I was a bit harsh and saying, um, uh, you need to use reasoning on artifact.
What? Why?
What's
I've just
what's
gone ahead
your
and done it, and I think it's the way to go. I just
oh,
So
oh
what's the
brilliant,
what's the problem?
brilliant. No, no, I was just checking in. I was just checking in because
Oh no,
it's partly because I felt a bit bad when I was listening to myself talking
why? It
and
made
saying,
sense.
yeah.
I don't think you should ever
Um,
apologize for making sense. So what now then? What now?
right. What now? So, well, from my side, um, I've got to apply exactly the same tools to reason about reasoning.
Yeah.
I don't know how to do that.
Well, shit, I didn't know how to do this either yesterday,
Yeah.
but
But
okay.
I suspect it's going to be a lot less than what it would take me 2 years ago to do, and I'm probably more correct.
Right. And so I need to think about the tools that you're going to want for the reasoning workbench, because if we're both doing reasoning, then we're both going to have the same things that we want out of it, right?
What's your thoughts on the interface? So you've got say Git KV there, which has got reasoning, which is palpable to NL
Mm,
talking to it.
mm.
I've got the same. What's the interface there? Do we just like point reasoning against reasoning and saying, "Hey, can you guys talk and do stuff?"
Sorry, what? I think
What's
I'm
the
lost.
interface? So at the moment, for example, I'm just randomly because you happen to be on it. Git KV
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
If I say something in reasoning
Yep.
that
So you
renders
modify
the
the reasoning,
JSON, yeah, and it says it doesn't know about Git KV, but it does know what it wants, not how to get it.
right?
And then talks to the reasoning around Git KV, and the bot says, "Hey, I can do that." What's the glue between them that allow me saying, "Hey,
No,
great,
still lost.
great, man."
Well, so the bot, who's bot? What bot? Where's the bot?
Right.
You
So
said the
say I've
bot
got
says.
I'm not entirely sure what Git KV does, but let's say
GitKV, GitKV
scraper.
uses a
Let's
KV. No, let's use something that's in front of us.
okay.
GitKV uses a KV database store to emulate Git.
Right. Okay. So if I have uh, um, uh, a core that says, what's the what does Git KV give in terms of capability? What does it do?
It lets you use a Git repo inside of Deno deploy.
Right. Okay. So if part of the reasoning is I want a KV store inside of a scalable system,
Mm.
So I'm writing that at that point. And you've got get KV here. It's got the reasoning saying, "Hey, I can do that."
Hmm.
How? I don't know the answer to this. How do we glue those two together? Because surely those two guys should talk, right? They should be able to get together.
Like, I'm
Because
real sorry. I think for some reason I can't see that. Can you say it one more time?
sure. Okay, so um, uh, if I have a core, and part of the definitions say I need a
No,
KV store.
you've uh
No.
so you're reasoning somewhere else.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, the
Some.
thing that throws me is you say I've got a core.
Oh yeah,
That's
yeah. Yeah.
I'm
Okay.
like,
Sorry.
what the hell is
A
that even?
domain. A domain. A domain. Has a code set of definitions.
So you're doing something in some other domain, and
Yep.
then the domain realizes that it needs a get KV thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And is your question about to be how is it a discoverability question? Like, how does
It's discoverability, yes, but then also interoperability.
interrupt? So what's the issue there? Because the parent domain or the consuming domain
Hmm.
would have recognized that it needed the get KV thing, and there would be some sort of a reconciliation process that would consider the reasoning and get KV
It's
and the
kind of like a
reasoning.
handshake. It's like a yeah.
No, you just consider them both at once, and
Uh-huh.
then with the purpose of saying, does get KV meet the needs of the thing in the parent domain? Yes or no?
And it's talking to reasoning. Uh,
I
it's
think it's
talking
reading it.
reasoning to reasoning, isn't it?
Yeah, it could. There's
Mm,
two ways it could do it.
mm.
It could read in the reasoning raw, or it could chat to the agent that represents the get KV, where it's like, "Hey, get KV agent, I want to have a chat about the reasoning you contain," and it's
Ah,
like,
right. So
it's
that's like a publication. I can do this. Anyone to talk to me about KV?
yeah, and then like your bot would maybe come up with the bot in the parent domain would come up with a bunch of questions or requirements for GetKV,
Yeah,
and
because that
GetKV
is
would
that.
reply,
Yeah, 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 yeah,
right?
yeah.
And then
Yeah, right.
that would be treated as almost a form of ingestion, and then reconciled into the parent domain. That's how I think it goes.
I think I think I agree. Although it pains me to say that, um, I don't like agreeing. But I think that yeah. So basically, the reasoning from the demander
Mm.
says, I'm looking for this."
Yep.
It's like discovery, discovery, discovery.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
because it could be like, a parent domain written in Japanese
right.
is needs a what the GetKV gives, and so the interrogation between the bots, the discussion is includes a language translation step too.
Right. So there's discovery, and then there's uh well
Interrogation or
something I called it a
probing.
handshake, but that's not the right name.
No, it's
Um,
advertising of capabilities. It's
well,
negotiation. That's what it's called. Negotiation.
negotiation. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's negotiate. Ah, we're back to TCP/IP.
Well,
Okay.
no, it's like service negotiation where you're trying to negotiate the capabilities and properties of the thing at the other end. You do like the
Yeah.
protocol handshake, so you're like, okay, we can talk, ping,
Yep.
pong. Okay, good. Now, what else can you do? And then you start building up
Right. Right.
what
Right.
the
Right.
right negotiating your
Yeah. Exactly.
capabilities. Yeah.
Now, in my clunky way, you've just expressed more precisely what I was trying to do. Um, so there, we'll work on discovery. But let's just say we've got an NL Nap. That's talking to Artifact. Artifact has reasoning, and it can work out saying, "Hey, I can do that now." Okay, this is probably a conversation for another time. But
Okay,
let's go
well,
for
let's
the
yeah,
happy case.
yeah,
The
let's
happy case is it does 100%. And go
yeah,
boom.
because I
There
gotta
you go.
go. I gotta go.
Yeah. Can I just I'll just make a note about what happens if it's 80% and something else can do the other 20%. But anyway, don't worry about that right
Yeah,
now.
we'll deal with that.
Yeah.
We'll just get our own
Yeah.
systems up and running before we deal with that. Are you okay if I'll stop the recording?
Yeah, go for
Yeah.
it. Yeah.